And just officially welcome everybody here today. I'm so excited to see all of you, so excited to welcome you. We're going to learn all about how to secure paid public speaking engagements to gain visibility for yourself and for your company. So I am so excited to share a little bit of background information on our esteemed expert today, Diane Darling. Diane, to overcome her fear of public speaking, she took acting and stand-up comedy classes. And this out of the box and strategic mindset has been a contributing factor to her success, helping her book the 700 speaking engagements Diane has had to date. She is the author of The Networking Survival Guide and Networking for Career Success, published by McGraw-Hill in 9 languages. A quick note that today we're going to hear from Diane's presentation. We're actually going to hold questions until the end. Diane has generously offered to open up an office hours for any questions, follow-up conversation after this event. So we'll go ahead and share that with you. We're so excited to learn from your deep expertise today, Diane. You're awesome, and we know how valuable your time is, especially today when you're at a conference, upskilling in your own career. So thank you for investing in Dreamers and Doers in this way. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. And as Nicole mentioned, I had an opportunity that came up last Thursday, Friday to attend a 2-day workshop here in New Jersey to improve my own public speaking. And so often these things just don't fit into my calendar. So I jumped at the opportunity. It does mean I'm actually sitting in the hall of the conference right now, or this 2-day workshop. I'm doing this while everybody's having lunch. So I am going to be going through the presentation. I am going to open up some office hours on Saturday, and then we can also put your questions in the queue in there. I will get to as many as I can. My time is going to be a little shorter today than I initially had hoped, but I think we're going to get a lot accomplished. So first of all, welcome to the whole idea of being a paid speaker. This is going to be an overview, and I'm happy to, talk to people either, as groups or whatever else it is, if you want to get in deeper on some of these topics. But first of all, let's think about how money flows. And most importantly, I want to know if most importantly, anyhow, public speaking is a skill you need to have for your career. You may be a paid speaker, but it's also going to help you advance your career. So the first part I'm going to talk about paid, because I do know that that's something that people wanted to know about, but I'm also going to really emphasize the importance of everybody to polish up your public speaking. This is an incredibly important skill for you to have, whether or not it's speaking up in a meeting, whether it's introducing me, whether it's representing your company at a conference. The last thing in the world you want to do is walk up there and feel in a panic. The gentleman who's running this workshop yesterday told us a story of somebody who had been in the military in Al-Qaeda. He had infiltrated, all kinds of incredibly dangerous things. But when he gave a speech, he was panicked. He said he'd rather be a hostage. So, it's interesting how so many things are just really important for your career. So then you're going to go from having this as a career skill, no matter how you get paid. After that, you're going to look for unpaid speaking gigs that are low risk. What do I mean by low risk? These tend to be obviously free, and these are ones that are in some cases outside of your industry, and or they are ones that are sometimes people like a friendly audience, people I actually happen to prefer an audience of total strangers. So I would actually, in some cases, find it much more comfortable when I would do some of my first talks in front of industries and people who just didn't know me at all, because I didn't have any nerves feeling like I was in front of somebody who knew me. Other people have a different feeling about that. Then you go to unpaid and high value. What is a high value? It's the audience you want to be in front of, but you're a newbie. And then you go to the paid high value, number 4, you see where you're going to get some payment. And then you go to your what's called a happy price. And this is the price that makes you feel like you are really the rock star that you are. And also in some cases, and we can talk about this either here or another session, about how do you do the pricing, because it's not an easy topic at all. There's no real simple formula. The money is something that is often a negotiable, and I will tell you that I have negotiated all kinds of things for my public speaking, but there are non-cash reasons why people do speaking. Maybe it's marketing. So for example, you get invited to go to a conference and you are somebody who has a marketing agency that sells SEO, and you can get a speaker slot there. Always ask if there's a budget for the speaker. And we'll do budget range, not just a solid number. You want to ask for a range. You're more likely to get that. Even if you do not need the cash, it's, it is worth you saying, is there a speaker budget? Some people speak for passion. There's people I know who are mission driven, passion driven. They want to talk about something that they've experienced in life. That's what's most important for them. Other people, visibility. Some people, it's part of their job. We'll talk briefly about what selling from the stage means. And that is a business model that some people do. It's not one that I particularly do or that I'm comfortable from doing, is standing up on stage and saying, and please buy my book or my product or my coaching package. That is just not my thing. Instead, I like to spend my time delivering fabulous content and having that be the number one reason. So you kind of want to think about this. Some cases it is a hobby or a pastime or something that you just want to share. And other people, it is how you live. It is how I make a living. So that is why I feel very important that everybody gets paid, because if other people don't get paid, then I get devalued as a part of that. Who pays you? I am mostly paid by conference organizers, and that is how many people speak. So there's conferences everywhere. Sometimes they're internal, sometimes they're external. Internal conference I'm speaking at, the next few ones are going to be internal meetings at law firms. And these law firms are having partner retreats, and they realize that all of the young puppies coming into law school do not know how to network internally in the law firm. We're seeing this as a crisis with the return to office, for example. People don't understand the value of internal networking at the office. So the law firm will bring me in to speak at that. That is unlikely. And in fact, I would not put any of that on social media unless I had permission. Whereas if I speak at the Massachusetts Conference for Women, which I don't speak because they don't pay, and I feel it's important for women to get paid. So if I did speak there, that is an open public thing. I could do some posting on that. But for the most part, the internal networking and the internal events is where I go. Some cases you can get a sponsor to pay you. Why would a sponsor pay you? Let's say you're going to be speaking in front of women, and there's a cosmetic company that wants to be in front of those young women, and they say, fine, we can pay you X amount. Please include 1 or 2 slides or talk about your experience with our jackets, our makeup, whatever it might be. That is a sponsored, and that is paid for by the sponsor. And last and not least is, let's say the audience pays you. You can create your own event. Go to Eventbrite and say the tickets are $20 and come and hear me speak about X, Y, and Z. You'll get paid by that audience. So those are kind of some of the different models. The number one reason you get paid is you solve someone's problem. People really respectfully are not interested in your story. They're not interested in your struggles. They're not interested in all of that sort of stuff. They want to know what problem of theirs you are going to solve. Typically, I find these problems fall into 3 categories: people, time, and money. People are there, the companies are having a hard time recruiting. They're having a hard time retaining people. They're having a hard time finding the right people. There's the productivity issue. That's another thing that companies will often pay for. And last but not least, how can they get more sales? How can they get more margin? What are some better ways for them to negotiate with their vendors to be sure that they are maximizing the money that is coming into the organization? And so what to charge? Ask for a budget range. Everything is negotiable. So you negotiate your speaker fee, you negotiate travel, you can negotiate whether or not you include books or something like that. Those are the 3 ways that I negotiate my packages. I do a package versus a flat fee as far as the speaking, just that fee. So then if someone says, well, your fee is a little bit high, I'm like, okay, do you not need books? I will offer to do a pre or post virtual hello. Would you not want to have something like that? So it's all negotiable. Full disclosure, I was paid by a beach towel for my first speaking engagement, but I got paid and I still have that beach towel. I'm going to keep that beach towel for eternity. Other times I'm paid for with A gift certificate from Legal Seafood. I've gotten several of those, or I'm paid for. I said one time, somebody said, what could I use? And I said, you know what? I would love a massage series. So they gave me a 3-month massage series. But the whole idea is that they appreciate the value of what you bring. I think that is something important to consider. Should you pay to speak? So there's sometimes this is offered to you. I discourage this for lots of reasons. I just don't think that this is a viable business model that respects your knowledge. What happens here? Someone will say, well, we're doing a summit, a speaker summit. We'd love for you to speak. What they want you to do is some cases pay for that slot. And also they want you to go out and do all of the promotion. When those people sign up from your promotion, those contact informations end up on that person's mailing list. So you're growing their mailing list and you are paying them. And what happens with this type of the selling from the stage model is that you then come up and you say, I've got a 2-week package, or I've got a 1-day summit, or I've got a 6-month speaking coaching package. Would you like to buy it? This can be very lucrative for some people. It's just not a model that works for my business. And, and that's the choice that I have decided to make with that. So what are some of the non-negotiables as far as speaking being a part of your career? The first non-negotiable is you got to know how to speak. This is part of the reason why I'm at this 2-day program right now in New Jersey. Came up at the last minute, drove 6 hours on Sunday, and I'll be driving a chunk of time tonight. You want to not only be good at this, ideally you want to be great. And one of the things that we're learning in these 2 days here is how incredibly important it is for your speech to be amazing. In the beginning, people think that they want to have their brand known. What you want to do is you want to have your speech known. They were telling us this morning about the AAAs, the athletes, the astronauts, and the actors. And those are people who are really famous and they're going to be booked because they fill seats at a conference. But what happens when you are not an actor, athlete, or astronaut or someone like that is your speech is known. Someone sees you speak and they say, I want to see somebody do that. So this is something you really do need to get right. And you want to practice your speech. You want to be sure it's compelling. I can spend a whole session on this. We're doing 2 days of it, just so you know the investment that I'm making in my time with this is to further advance my career. And I've been speaking for 20 years. So it's important for me to continue to do it. The audio is often said that it's more important than the video. Your content needs to be good. Your speaking skills need to be great. And so if this is something, an area where you struggle, you're uncomfortable, your heart races, you have panic or anxiety. And I will say introverts can be fabulous speakers. This is not just a game that is only for extroverts. Introverts can be amazing speakers. So you want to have your speaking really, really good. We just did an exercise where we did boom, boom, boom. We did that for 2 solid minutes to warm up our lips. And then we were asked to say the exercise of saying our name. We did squats. We did jumping jacks. Some guys were doing planks in here. So the whole idea was to get our heart revved, and then we would say something and we would learn how our voice was changing with each situation to improve our actual voice, speech, and all of that. So then you want to kind of think about your nerves. I share the story that in the very beginning, my neck would break out in red blotches. I was so nervous. I went to TJ Maxx. I bought lots of red turtlenecks and I did all my speeches in red. So that if my neck broke out, it just was kind of a whole red glow. I then took acting classes and stand-up comedy. I haven't done something with professional development for myself in a while. That's why this opportunity was fabulous. But, part of it is you want to be sure you find a way to make this work for you. At this point, I rarely get nervous to the point that I can't speak. I am always nervous. I was very nervous. Nicole and I got on here 10 minutes before. Victoria, who works with me, who lives in Colombia, we all got on here 10 minutes before. I went running up and down the stairs a little bit to get kind of my anxiety out. That's normal nerves. That's healthy nerves. If your nerves are to the point that you can't actually speak, your dryness or something along those lines, that is something where you need to work on your speaking craft. And that is something that you can get through. The magic number that I've been told is to rehearse your speech 8 times. 8 times. Today, we learned this morning, and I'm not going to include it because I just learned it this morning, didn't have time to adjust the slides. We went through the seven method of practicing. And so part of it was a table read. And then later on, it was inviting people to see us speak. And then you test the technology. There were 7 different parts of all of this. Myself included, when we get used to being a speaker, too often we think, oh, we've got a couple bullet points. I know what I'm going to say. I've said this a lot. So we kind of default to our own personal knowledge without practicing it a lot. So this is going to be a takeaway for me. And one of the gentlemen that I interviewed for my book called this rehearsed spontaneity. So it sounds like it's the very first time to the audience that you've ever said it, but you've rehearsed it many, many times. So you want to think about the audience member. I remember one time meeting somebody who's been in Phantom 1,000 times. And I said, how do you keep that fresh? And he said, I always remember there's at least one person in the audience who saved for this ticket. It's a very meaningful experience to them. So part of it is you want to think about your audience all the time. They are the ones that are making it possible for you to have this career. What are some resources for you to practice? Toastmasters is one. The good thing about Toastmasters is it takes you through a formula. For me, the bad news is it takes you through a formula. So I'm not a formula person. I'm dyslexic. I'm ADD. This sometimes just doesn't work how I'm wired. Acting classes and stand-up comedy were very helpful. My next challenge is improv, and I'm too chicken. I will get there at some point, but I have yet to do improv. But you want to have lots of people who give you some feedback, have a chance to see your presentations, and you want to see how people help you out. There will be a lot of people who will want to sell you stuff. So once you go into this business, there's coaches, there's technology, there's all kinds of tools, there's all kinds of things that you can get into. So be aware that there'll be a lot of people who will want to sell you different things to do. Some of it's worth it. Some of it may not be worth it. So part of it is to think about what that is and do that. We can do another session maybe at some point about the business of being a speaker. You want to have a separate bank account. You want to be sure you have expenses and think about how you're going to make this work for you as a business. All right, let's keep rolling. All right, you're going to want something called a sizzle reel or a demo reel. This is 2 to 5 minutes of you speaking. Ideally, it's in front of a live audience. And actually, this is something that I negotiated recently. I got asked to speak and they said, we don't have a big budget. And I said, will it be filmed for you? I'm going to be doing the opening keynote. And they said, yes, it actually will be filmed. And I said, can I get a copy of my keynote within 2 weeks? And so that is going to be part of my compensation. When you are speaking, it's a good idea for you to get testimonials. So as people are leaving and they're saying great things, have a videographer there to say that, and then you can turn this into a short sizzle reel. You want to have not a lot of music or loud music on this video, and I suggest you avoid putting this on YouTube, because if you put it on YouTube, it goes to the next video, where if you put it on Vimeo or Wistia, it will automatically just stay there. Content is king, and you want to practice your content and think about this thoughtfully. When Victoria and I were doing the slides, I did the paid part at the end. And then when I looked at all your questions, I'm like, I need to start with that. I don't want to end with that. So I redid the content. So your content may be something that people share that you're going to go through several times. We did some Post-it notes in this workshop. So we did Post-it notes, and then you move things around and you bunch them out. So that is something. You can either have an idea book or you can have a note on your phone. For me, one of the things that I have thought about for my content is, what do people ask me about? And I started speaking when somebody said to me, Diane, would you do a talk about networking? And I was kind of insulted because I thought networking was a bad thing. And they said, no, you connect people. And I'm like, I do? Doesn't everybody do that? And they said, no, they don't. And so anytime someone asks you something, that is content for your speech. I do sleep with index cards, and the reason I do is I write an idea on the index card and then I toss it down and I don't have to wake up and turn on the light. So this is something else that I have learned helpful for me. Something to factor in that in general, for every hour of your presentation, it's 10 hours of work. This is actually, I probably did at least 10 hours on this presentation for all of you. So part of it is you want to think about, and Victoria did more because she did the slides. So part of it is you want to really understand that this is not something you kind of stand up there and talk off the top of your head. I'm talking too loud, she said. Sorry. I'm in the hall. And so part of it is you want to think about, is there a way for you to be sure that you can, have enough time that you put ahead of time to deliver a terrific talk. All right, your audience is listening to a radio station called WII-FM. What's in it for me? So as you're crafting your speech, you want to think about how can you make it a really compelling talk for the audience. They are the ones that are paying you either directly or indirectly, and focus on them. Anytime you can solve a problem for them, you will have a chance to get a speech and become a referable speaker. And that is one of the books of the gentleman who's hosting this event. You're going to want to come up with learning objectives. You're going to see this in many cases when there's a request for speaking. The last thing I'm going to talk about is client and admin. In order for you to speak, you got to get booked. That means you got to do sales. If you're not being paid, you're going to do sales, outreach, and things like that. So you want to think about, what is your system? What do people ask you about? Who is the person who you want to talk to? You know more about something than anybody else. What is that something? And again, people value time, money, and people as some of their hot topics of things to talk about. Where can you find these opportunities? Eventbrite, Meetup, Innovation Women, Chambers. Here's some of the different ways and places for you to find different events for where you can speak. You want to create some systems. This is the thorn in my side, because I'm always trying to figure out what is the best system to do this, and it takes a lot of time. You do outreach or marketing. Then you want to have a calendar where people can call you back. You want to have systems on your website. You want to have a lead magnet. If you don't already own your name as a domain, for example, I own dianedarling.com. Go out today and buy your name. For your financials, have a separate bank account. Taxes, oh goody. This is one more thing for you to do. But if this is a business, you want to treat it like a business, and you want to realize how important it is for you to have these systems in place. This is just part of my tech stack. So I have a CRM, which stands for Customer Relationship Management. I use LinkedIn. I have an email list. It's on Zoho, but here's some of the other tools that you might use. I have lights at home. I have a boom microphone at home. I'm using a wired microphone today. So these are some of the tools that I use to help me figure out how to stay on track and be sure I deliver a fabulous presentation, because that is something most important for you all to experience. There will come a time that maybe you want to outsource some of this. Victoria handles my slides, my social media. I have somebody else who does the bookkeeping. The sales and marketing is part of what I do myself, although I would certainly like to maybe outsource a little bit more of that, because I really love doing this. I really love delivering knowledge and useful information that is helpful to other people. That is what keeps me up at night. That's my secret sauce. That's my joy. But I also know I can't do that if somebody doesn't say to me, Diane, we'd like for you to speak. Non-cash compensation. I mentioned this in the beginning, and we'll be sending you a list of what the non-cash compensation can include. So for example, this might be something that is a new destination. It may be the chance that there's a video. One of the things I'm going to ask all of you to do is, if you will, either go to talk.ac Diane Darling, or scan the QR code and give me feedback. I'll leave this slide up here for a little bit. But I work alone. Victoria's far away in Colombia, so I don't always get feedback on my talks. So I would love to hear any feedback that you may have on this program. And also in those questions, there'll be a blank question that you can say, what else would you have liked to learn today? So this is a tool that lets this is called Talkadot, and this is a tool that I do use as a speaker to get feedback. This is something that I can go then to Dreamers and Doers and say, these are the number of people who shared this kind of feedback with me. Or if it's a paid gig, obviously that's something I can show to them. Or if it's a free program, I can say, hey, I'd like to, possibly get paid in the future. So, well, this is a really terrific tool and you can see this in action. Here's a few talks I'm going to recommend you watch that are short speeches that have been really I've watched all of these, and I think in many cases I don't believe in favorites, but I do believe in opportunities for me to learn. Steve Jobs, obviously founder of Apple, sadly passed away, but he spoke at Stanford graduation and he talked about three things. He talked about being adopted. He talked about how he started Apple, and he talked about being fired at Apple. I probably saw that speech on YouTube 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think I've seen it recently. I still remember the three things he talked about. Monica Lewinsky, she gave a TED Talk about bullying because she was one of the first people to experience online bullying, because her experience, if you don't know who she is, you can Google her, you'll find out a lot. But you can find out, kind of why she decided to speak out was because of the online bullying suicides. And she had been silent for a long time about her experience having an affair with the President of the United States. But she felt at this point it was important for her to speak up because of the online bullying. Brene Brown is a remarkable person. Go to her TED Talk. There's a fun one called Men's Brains versus Women's Brains, a little bit of comedy. Taylor Tomlinson is now the person who is on TV late at night. Watch this part on New York Times about how she evolves her closing joke. And you can see how somebody takes a look and practices it and then adapts it. And then if you want to go to a speakers bureau, you can go check out Leading Authorities. This one was shared with me by a dreamer and doer who uses that bureau, and see why those people get lots of money, and B, these are often politicians and very highly visible people. Speaker bureaus want highly visible people. I'm not with a bureau, and I don't know that I'll ever be with a bureau because I'm just not famous enough. So that's something to factor in as well. So if you want to post your questions, you can use this slide as well, and you can put them in Slido, and I can take a look at them. And then next Saturday, I will be doing some office hours, and I will be sharing all of this with the Dreamers and Doers team, because I know I have kind of gone through this in a very quick fashion. And if you didn't have a chance to go ahead and do that code, here it is again. So I will take a quick look at the chat and see if there's any questions. Or Nicole, if you see anything specifically that you want me to address, I'm happy to take a look at that.
Yeah, actually, Diane, I don't think we had any specific questions hop into the chat yet. So I'm keeping an eye. Oh, one just came through. Clara says, this was so helpful. Thank you. If you don't have any speech video to start with, what would you recommend doing?
I would recommend you find an opportunity to get videotaped. So part of what I think is really interesting to do with all of this is to see, and I can stop the share if there's no more questions on that specifically. One of the things that I have seen people do is create their own event, and to create something, and you can, ideally it's in a live event, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, there's one person I know who her church, she was able to get her church to stay after on a Sunday. The lights were up there. They had a screen in the back. She did a presentation. They had the camera all of there. She just did all of that sort of a thing. So it was able to have her do that. And so she had that filming. You don't want to do it look too fake. You don't necessarily want to use, stock video to make it look like you're in front of an audience, because people are going to catch that stuff. I mean, look what happened to Kate Middleton and her Mother's Day photographs. I mean, good grief. So yeah.
I think we just have one more that just came in. Do you have time, Diane, for another one?
I do. Yep. I'll
Okay.
take another minute or two and then I'll go back up.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. This is from Lauren. She says, can you give some ballpark speaking fees that subject matter experts can quote as our own fees? Oops, I just lost the question here. Sorry about that. Especially for speakers who aren't famous but are well established in their fields, they want to start earning paid gigs beyond that unpaid route. So some ballpark speaking fees was the question.
Yeah, so I've been paid I will just fully transparent, I've been paid everything from 0 to $15,000. The gentleman who's teaching this, his standard fee, if you will, is $30,000. So, but I would definitely tell you that very few people can make a living full-time as a speaker. Now, there are people like Carla Harris, who's one of my role models for sure. She's with Morgan Stanley. She's an SVP, and she gets paid $35,000 for a speech in addition to getting, I'm sure, a pretty good salary at Morgan Stanley. She sings, she wears pearls, which are her pearls of wisdom, and she talks about those as she goes on stage. Yes, you want to think about the dollar you're being paid. I think it's also important for you to think about the value you're bringing to the organization. I did have one person who said to me, I almost didn't hire you because your fee was so low. I didn't think you would be good. So it has to be consistent. But in the beginning, I started with $500. That was what I did for many cases. And in some cases, I feel it's easier to get paid nothing and say, here's what I'd like for you to do. You'll see when you get the non-cash compensation list, I want introductions. I want a testimonial on LinkedIn. I want the video is going to be, I'm taking several $1,000s off of my presentation fee for that.
Awesome. We just had another one come in from Shang. She says, I have a book coming out in 2025. Also, Shang, celebrating you. That's incredible. I'm so excited about that. She says, can you talk a little bit about getting book sales instead of a speaker fee? Are corporate budgets for that similar?
In some cases, you can actually get more, you can sell books easier, but you won't necessarily make as much money. What I would encourage you to do is to get out speaking now so that when the book comes out, your sales are already flowing, because what's going to happen is people are going to say, well, we don't have a budget to pay you as a speaker. So you're going to forfeit a $5,000 fee in exchange for, $500 on books. You're going to at times burn out pretty quickly on that.
Thank you so much.
Sure, sure. All right, please go in and check out some, I'm happy to make some time for anybody with Q&A on Saturday. Hopefully if people watch the recording, same thing, please join me on this Saturday or put some things on Dreamers and Doers, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. Thank you all so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Diane. This was wonderful, so helpful, so impactful. Thank you so much. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
tuning in from the
Bye-bye.
stairs. Bye, everyone. Good to see you.
You're
Have a great
welcome.
week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.